Hi guys, I'm Jennifer and I'm from the channel Jennifer Vega, and today I'm going to tell you guys my favorite movie from the year 2000. I wasn't even born yet in the year 2000, but I think there were some pretty good movies, and some of my personal favorites from that year include Memento, Final Destination, and American Psycho, and many more. But my absolute favorite movie from the year 2000 is Unbreakable. Directed by M. Night Shyamalan, he's one of my favorite directors and one of the most underrated directors in my opinion. And the reason I love this movie so much is because it takes a genre I really love, which is the superhero genre, and completely twists it completely. Because this is a comic book movie told in a completely different way. It stars Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson, and they're both playing completely different characters because Bruce Willis's character gets into a train accident at the very beginning of the movie and is not harmed whatsoever. And then he meets Samuel L. Jackson's character who bones break very easily, and he's Mr. Glass. And this movie is just fantastic. It has the action, it has the twists and turns, and it just has great characters, and it's a really awesome way to tell a superhero story in a light that has never been told before. And the fact that it's so different yet feels so familiar at the same time is a reason why it's one of my favorites, and it led to be one of my favorite trilogies. The Unbreakable trilogy is amazing, and the directing, the writing, everything about this movie, and the musical score that I think is not talked about enough is fantastic, and that is why Unbreakable is my favorite movie of the year 2000.
My name is Josh and I am from the channel After Credits. I would bore you with the details, but if you're here then you probably already know what my channel's all about. Anyway, today I am talking about 2001, and 2001 is actually a very important year for cinema in my opinion, because it's the first year we ever had the Academy Award for the Best Animated Feature, and well, that's gonna kind of play into my list here when I get to my favorite film. Before I get into my favorite, I'm gonna give some honorable mentions though that definitely need to be mentioned. Lord of the Ring, The Fellowship of the Ring, Ocean's 11, Spy Kids, Monsters Inc., Legally Blonde, Bridget Jones's Diary, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Zoolander, my favorite film from this year, and if you picked up on my hint at the beginning, you probably already know that it is Shrek. I really love Shrek, and it's hard to say to people that you unironically love Shrek, because they go, oh yeah, of course you love Shrek, Shrek is life, Shrek is love, and all that weird stuff. But I really do like this film. I remember I always used to watch it when I was younger. I still love watching it, and it's so fresh. When you consider the behind the scenes of this film, it's Jeffrey Katzenberg leaving Disney, and it's kind of a big middle fingers up to Disney, because you take these sort of caricatures from Disney, and there's such an interesting spin on them. It's just really interesting, really witty how they tell the story. Illumination films have adult jokes hidden in there to entertain the parents who are dragged along by their kids to see Minions. Sorry, Dad. But with this film, the adult jokes feel warranted given the nature of the character Shrek and actually the rest of the characters. When I was younger, yes, this was just Shrek, the film with the donkey and the ogre, but now I really pick up on the interesting and emotional story beats that they actually went through in this film. It feels kind of like it is doing a cliche, but it's doing it in such an interesting and fresh way that I find it just to be really great. Some people may go in the year of the first Lord of the Rings and Ocean's 11, you're gonna go with Shrek, and I say to them, yes, because Shrek, aside from all the memes, is really good. I mean, most people I know that have seen Shrek really like it, so they probably already get the praise that I'm trying to give it, but if you haven't, I strongly recommend this film. And hopefully we can end all the weird Shrek memes. I mean, come on guys, it's ogre now. But anyway, there's too much of this film to go into in such a short video, you know? This film is like an onion. It has layers. Why? Why?
2002 was not the best year for movies. I mean, sure, I have a load of guilty pleasures from that year, like Scooby-Doo, Stuart Little 2, and Attack of the Clones, but as far as really great movies go, there's only really a few from that year, like 28 Days Later, Lilo and Stitch, and of course, my favourite movie of all time, the movie I'm going to be talking about today, you know I'm going to talk about it, Spider-Man. I absolutely love Spider-Man. If you've seen my channel before, you'll know I'm a huge Raimi fanboy, and Spider-Man is my favourite of the Raimi trilogy. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, sure, it's cheesy. The Green Goblin looks like a blooming Power Rangers villain, for crying out loud, but I like that. I can handle that amount of cheese. I know not all people can, that's absolutely fine, but I can, and I absolutely love it. But this movie has a lot more to offer than just cheesy scenes. I mean, it has a lot of heartfelt moments in it. The acting is pretty good, especially from Willem Dafoe. I think he's phenomenal in this film. But also the action scenes are incredible. The final battle is one of the best action scenes in any superhero movie, in my opinion. The fact that there's hardly any music, I think, is absolutely brilliant. Brilliant directing, brilliant scene making, brilliant movie making. It's just so good in my opinion. I just love this movie. I mean, I've talked about this movie to death. I've made reviews about it. I've listed it in my top 10 movies of all time. I've talked about this movie so much on my channel, so if you want to know more, check it out. Don't really know what else to say. Spider-Man is just... it's just a childhood favourite. Nostalgia, man. Nostalgia is what fuels my love for this movie. I used to watch it all the time when I was a kid. I just think it's brilliant. I really do think that it's, if not the best, at least one of the best in 2002. Because I think it's brilliant. I really do. And that is why it takes my 2002 spot.
2003. So yeah, this isn't the best year for movies. Not a lot of amazing films came out. There were a couple of amazing films that did come out. But you know, it was sort of a transition between the 90s and into the zeros, so I understand. Before I get into my favourite, which I'm sure you probably know what it is, I am going to give some honourable mentions to Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, X2, X-Men United. We also have Finding Nemo, great Pixar film, Cat in the Hat and Johnny English, some favourite films from my childhood. Gonna be completely honest here, I didn't mind the Daredevil film from this year, it was okay. Okay, now to get into my first pick, I'm pretty sure you know what it is. It is The School of Rock. I absolutely love this film. It used to be my favourite film until a couple of days ago, actually. It was my favourite film. That has now changed to a film that will be talked about by Honor's Film Reviews in 2013, so I'll leave it to him to talk about that. But my second favourite film is still The School of Rock. And I don't know, a lot of people think, what, that's your second favourite film? Like, it's not one that immediately comes to mind when you think about, you know, top films. But for me, I love it so much because it's impacted me a lot. Because once I saw this film, I started to play the electric guitar and I loved rock music a lot more. And that's a big part of my life now. And you know how, like, in How I Met Your Mother, Ted Mosby likes to link every little thing back to each other. What if I'd never seen that film? Would I play guitar? Would I have done all of this stuff? I don't know. And so I'm grateful for that film. But as a film on its own, it's really enjoyable. Like, Richard Linklater, I haven't seen many of these other films, but I can see, like, he puts a lot of effort into them, especially as they're, like, filmed over long periods of time. And I can just tell he really made an effort to make the comedy feel real in this. Like, Jack Black, it's just... it feels like he was just left there with the kids to improvise humor, and they had so much natural chemistry that they could find all this banter between them. And the kids, sometimes child actors are hit and miss, like Artemis Fowl, miss. But in this film, they seem to work. They're not over the top, like I'm assuming this School of Rock TV show that I'm never going to watch is. And I think it just works really well. It's just such an amazing film. It's really funny, really entertaining. I don't tire of watching it. It's got some great rock songs thrown in there, and I like the musical as well. The musical is actually really fun. And so, although it's not my absolute top favorite film, that is why I love School of Rock so much.
Hey, I'm Ethan Butler from my channel, what's it called again? Oh yeah, Ethan Butler, yeah. I just do anything like related to movies, so if you're like interested in that, you can watch my stuff. So 2004 is an interesting year for me specifically because that's the year I was born, for one, and two, it's one of the best years for movies from what I know of. So from Pixar we got movies like The Incredibles. From Edgar Wright we got Shaun of the Dead, one of my favorite comedies of all time. From writer Charlie Kaufman we got Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, one of my personal all-time favorites. And then, you know, we got a movie like Michael Mann's 2004 film Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx. Great thriller. But for me, the film that's connected with me the most, and I saw it for the first time back in April, I believe, and I've rewatched it like 3 times or something like that since then, is Before Sunset. Now this is the follow-up to the 1995 movie Before Sunrise, so it's a sequel, a decade in the making. And Before Sunrise is basically like a romance where 2 people meet on a train, they get off the train, and they just kind of spend one night together. It's a very cute, romantic movie, but it also captures the beauty and humanity and just the overall excitement of meeting somebody. And so Before Sunset, what it does is it has these 2 characters who fell in love in their 20s, and you see them now in their 30s, and they're grown up, they're more adult, and they're catching up. That's basically the whole movie. It's 80 minutes long. It never wastes a second. And it's mostly done in one takes, and the 2 main actors, Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, actually wrote most of their dialogue for the film, which I find is incredibly interesting. But what they did so well with this is the downward spiral you're going down with these characters. It's so beautifully realistic. You're just completely there with the characters. You want to see them succeed. But whatever decision they make, it's going to be a mistake, no matter what they do. And so it's so stressful, yet it's so calming to watch at the same time, because there's no real conflict with this movie. It is really simple and straightforward. It's just two people talking. That's the whole movie. But the conversations are extremely interesting. I'm just really immersed into what they're talking about. There's just a lot of relatable things they're talking about, and they're adults, and it's cool seeing them more grown up and more mature and having different outlooks on life now with different experiences. It's in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. And if you haven't seen the Before trilogy, I strongly recommend it. It's one of the best trilogies of all time. So, Before Sunset is my favorite movie of 2004.
What's up guys, my name is David, I run the channel Basically Star Wars, and today I will be discussing my favorite movie from 2005. My favorite movie from 2005 is coincidentally my favorite Star Wars movie, Revenge of the Sith. A contender, but nowhere near close, for my favorite movie of 2005 is Batman Begins. In my personal opinion, the best Batman movie. Not the best made Batman movie. I think Dark Knight is far better from a filmmaking standpoint, but in my opinion, once again, the best Batman movie. Revenge of the Sith is also kinda my favorite movie. It changes between Spider-Man 2, Lady Bird, Interstellar, Empire Strikes Back, of course, and Blade Runner 2049. All masterpieces, but I think at the end of the day, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite movie. The reason I love Revenge of the Sith as much as I do is for 2 main reasons. 1, nostalgia, and 2, Anakin. First, let's talk about the nostalgia I have for this movie. When I was about 7 to 11, this was once again my favorite movie of all time. The reason I liked it so much back then was simply because it was the most action-packed prequel, and of course being a little kid, I thought the prequels were the best. And at the age of 16, I obviously realized that the prequels are still the best. But really, this movie just meant so much for me. I was obsessed with prequel memes before prequel memes were even a thing. I would quote all of the lines, I would reenact all of the scenes with my action figures. This movie just meant the world to me. The battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin blew my 7-year-old mind to the point where I was reenacting it with my dog. And then I was around 12 and I got introduced to prequel hate, and it was shocking to me. I genuinely was blind to the fact that people hated the prequels. So of course I just stopped liking Revenge of the Sith because the internet told me to. But around the age of 13 or 14, I rewatched it, and this time I really appreciated it, and it wasn't just because of nostalgia. And that brings me to my second point of why I love this movie, Anakin. Anakin's story in Revenge of the Sith is amazing. It is the story of a tragic hero. Destined for greatness but falling into the hands of the devil, but all in the name of love. I will die on the hill that the prequels are good movies, just with some poor execution at some times. And in this movie you can truly see that this is the story that George Lucas always wanted to tell. Ideas are clear, concise, and overall the movie is just pure fun. Hayden Christensen really brings it in this movie and plays Anakin the way he's supposed to play Anakin, a tortured young man. And once again, this movie is pure fun and will always put a smile on my face. Revenge of the Sith is absolutely, positively as amazing as Toby.
For 2006, I have chosen The Prestige. This is one of my favorite films of all time and my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I think it is absolutely mind-blowing. There's 2 twists at the end that you should have picked up on, and they're hiding in plain sight the entire movie. You should have picked up on it, but you don't understand it until the end. I think that is really cool, and it's incredible payoff. On rewatch, it's even better. You see how many times you should have seen that this is going to happen, but you don't pick up on it. We also have these 2 fantastic performances in the lead, Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale. Both did a really great job in my opinion. Most of the movie is just about these 2 magicians in a rivalry, and I thought it was really cool. Some people say this movie is too confusing, some people say it's too obvious, but for me, it was just the right amount. For me, it just worked perfectly. So yeah, The Prestige is my pick for 2006.
I run the YouTube channel ScreenTrooperStudios, and I love movies. 2007, a lot of really good movies came out. We had Enchanted, No Country for Old Men, Atonement, but ultimately, I did have to go with The Bourne Ultimatum. This movie is a jam. It is really fun. It is super entertaining. The action sequences are mind-blowingly good. And this is one of the rare cases where shaky cam works, and it gets points for just getting shaky cam right. But yeah, overall, this movie blew me. It's so good on an action level, but also really good on a character level. It dives deep into the characters of Jason Bourne and all of the supporting cast. You learn a lot of things with the characters, and there are these really cool moments where you learn certain things, and it just leaves you shocked. This is my favorite Jason Bourne movie for a couple of reasons as well. It's the film with the best action sequences, has the best direction, the best cinematography. By the way, the cinematography is mind-blowingly good. It has these really amazing establishing shots that look so good. The editing is really like just super precise, and it shows you exactly what you need to know. But it's also really smart in the sense that it doesn't show you some things, and so by the end of it you have like different perspectives, and it's kind of, for me, it feels like the conclusion of sort of the original 3 Bourne films, and so it ties up quite a few things really well. So this movie was really entertaining, but also from a character level and a filmmaking level, it's also very good. I thoroughly enjoyed Matt Damon as this character, and sort of his arc, or his character arc in the entire trilogy really comes full circle here. My one issue with the movie would have to be that it's a little bit too long, but other than that, I really love this movie, and it's such a blast. 2008 was a very interesting year for movies because we got a lot of different things. From the big budget and like the huge blockbuster category, we got movies like WALL-E, The Dark Knight, Iron Man, and a bunch of other films. But also, there were a lot of very small films that got released that were very good. We got The Hurt Locker, and some really good foreign films like Ponyo from Japan, an anime Ghibli film. But really, my favorite movie of 2008 is The Dark Knight. This movie is my favorite superhero movie of all time, and it's actually my second favorite movie of all time, losing only to Empire Strikes Back. And the reason I like The Dark Knight so much is because it's not a superhero movie. It's more of a crime film, and it's a crime film told with the DC characters, and it's very believable, it's very real. You don't have like laser guns or anything like that. It's raw, and partly the reason why the authenticity really came through is because of the performances. Heath Ledger's Joker is mind-blowing. It is such a good performance. Also, Christian Bale, Harvey Dent, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Michael Caine, Gary Oldman, they were all phenomenal in the movie. They all did a really good job with the characters, but really Heath Ledger was the standout performance. My favorite aspect of this movie is really just the scope of it. At times, it feels really small, but then it has these really huge otherworldly themes in it. And so it's a film that, whilst it's relatively small compared to most superhero movies that come out today, it has themes that make it feel much bigger. And towards the end of the film, there is this like really cool sort of Kobayashi Maru situation. It really tested the characters, and it was such a riveting finale. And this isn't really a movie where Batman just goes after the Joker constantly, even though he is going after the Joker. You won't just go see Batman and the Joker going at it. In fact, Batman and the Joker really only interact properly twice in the movie. Once in the interrogation scene, which is amazing, and then towards the end of the film, Harvey Dent's character arc is really good, and it has such an interesting and compelling change, and his character is just really like good, and he's like the White Knight and the sort of force for good and the best of the team in Gotham. And then he loses Rachel, and it all kind of just goes down for him, and that makes him crack. And even usually when a huge character change like that happens, it's unbelievable and really unrealistic, disjointed, but here it worked because of the Joker. I really love this film.
Hey guys, it's Oliver from Oliver's Movie Reviews. Thank you for inviting me into the Critic community. Yeah, I'm a part of it now, and you, the viewer, probably aren't, so yeah. I feel like one of those characters that gets added into a TV show and everyone just hates. So today I'll be reviewing my favorite movie from 2009, and I was so lucky to get this year. My favorite movie came out this year, and no, I don't think The Dark Knight came out in 2009, because I have a new favorite movie, and that is Inglourious Basterds, directed by Quentin Tarantino. Let's just start with the general direction of this movie. Quentin Tarantino has an insane ability to balance tones, similar to Sam Raimi in the Spider-Man trilogy. Well-paced, well-acted, just everything about it is top-notch. I felt like the bar scene did drag on for a little longer. Quentin Tarantino kind of, I guess, got over confident that, a scene could go on for that long. However, the ending makes up for it. The last 47 minutes are the best part. And now I will be getting into spoilers because one of the main characters dies, and it goes from that extremely powerful scene to the ending where, everyone's getting blown up and stuff. I don't think that I could have asked for a better movie. History as a topping in cinema is already very interesting to me. I love movies about World War II if they're done right, and this one was better than anything I could have asked for. Let's start with the characters and the acting. The characters obviously are all very memorable. Shoshana is one of my favorite characters. Hans Landa is one of my favorite characters. Everyone in it is absolutely top-notch. Christoph Waltz absolutely knocks it out of the park. I can definitely see why he's won Best Supporting Actor for both this and Django Unchained. Now, I'd like to finish off this review with giving a couple honorable mentions to other movies that came out in 2009. For one thing, Avatar, one of the best-looking movies you'll ever see, and probably one of James Cameron's weaker films, but between Terminator 2 and Aliens, that's a pretty high bar to beat. Also, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, one of my favorite animated movies. I know that might sound strange. I actually like it better than another animated movie that came out this year, which is Up. But I think that the best animated winner of 2009, for me at least, I know most people it's Up, is Fantastic Mr. Fox. I know it's Dominic's favorite movie, and I don't blame him. I've seen this movie like 5 times in a month, and it's one of the most rewatchable and heartfelt movies you'll ever see. I love just stop-motion movies as a whole, and it is absolutely amazing. Anyway, thank you for having me in this video, and make sure to check out my channel, and I'll see you all next time, or on my channel.
Hey guys, it's NEEK, and I have 2010, which is such a great year for movies. My runner-up here would be Toy Story 3. I absolutely love the Toy Story franchise. I love all 4 of those movies. They're all among my favorite animated movies of all time, so that includes Toy Story 3. But my favorite movie of 2010 is also just my favorite movie at that moment in general, and that is Inception. So why do I love Inception? Well, there's actually a lot of reasons. I love when you combine 2 different genres, especially when it's sci-fi with another genre. I think that works really well, and this time you got sci-fi with a heist movie, and I think those really work well together, and I love how they use this dream technology as a heist movie. It's just really cool stuff, and it makes it a better heist movie and a better sci-fi movie. And it's just super original, super creative, does something you've never really seen before, messes with your mind in all the good ways, and it's not too confusing. You can definitely follow the plot, but there's definitely more you can see. If you rewatch it, you can learn more and stuff. But if you're just watching it, you'll definitely understand everything that is going on. And then you also just have some great direction from Christopher Nolan. You got some really cool shots and just some really cool visual style here. And then you also got some really cool action scenes that are doing something you've never seen before with the hallway fight and like that zero gravity fight. That's just really cool stuff, and I love how they use the dream stuff in the fights. Really cool stuff. And then, but with all that stuff would already make me love the movie. But why it's my favorite is because while it has all that great stuff, I also really love this main character in Cobb, and I think, yeah, he's such a great character that really elevates this movie, because he's not only just a great character on himself, he really fits inside of this movie, and even he has like a backstory that's like, he has a tragic backstory, but it's not separated from the movie. It's very related to the main premise of the movie, which I think works really well, because you can have a character just write in with the tragic backstory, but sometimes I feel like you can just do it just to have something. It doesn't actually really matter to the story. This very much ties to the story, and I love his sort of journey of what he's trying to do, trying to get back to see his kids, and as they build the character with Maul and everything as you learn stuff, and all the pieces start coming together as you learn more and more about his story, and it's just some heartbreaking stuff, and then you get to see him overcome it and stuff. All really great stuff. I love everything they do with Cobb. And, of course, he is played by the amazing Leonardo DiCaprio, who delivers a phenomenal performance. So put all that stuff together, and that's why Inception is my favorite movie of 2010. So now of 2011, my runner-up here would be Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. I'm a big fan of the Mission Impossible series overall, and this is definitely one of my favorites, probably my second favorite. You just have some very good direction from Bad Bird, some cool action, some crazy stunts, all the stuff you expect from the Mission Impossible series that I love is in here. But my favorite film of the year is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Now I love conclusions to franchises. If they fully pull off a conclusion to a franchise, it will most likely be my favorite of the entire franchise. Like Return of the King is my favorite Lord of the Rings movie, and Endgame is my favorite MCU movie. I love to see everything come together and end in a very satisfying way, and that's what this movie does. I'm a giant fan of the Harry Potter books and a pretty big fan of the movies. I like most of them, not as much as the books, but still a pretty big fan of most of the movies. I think they're better in terms of most book adaptations, and this is my favorite of the movies. This movie closes off so many of the characters' arcs and relationships really well, like Snape, Neville, and Harry and Voldemort sort of relationship. All of that, they have some great moments and really conclude it in very satisfying ways and make me like all those characters a lot more. And then this movie is also just epic in scale and has this like epic battle going on throughout the entire movie, and they pace it very well as you have enough stops in the battle and like the fighting, and you have enough there's always an objective you need to do, so it never feels like boring. You never really get bored because there's always something to do and you have those breaks, but at the same time you get a lot of fun action in here. You get the big epic action that you want in this finale, but you never get bored while doing it, so I think that's handled really well, and this movie pretty easily has the best action out of the entire series. The movie can also be very emotional, and it concludes all these sort of like mysteries they set up throughout the franchise really well, and yeah, overall it's a really great movie that concludes the franchise amazingly.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into the very first Critic Community YouTube video. My name is Dominic from the channel Dominic Talks Movies, and obviously like everyone else here, I love to talk about movies. My year is 2012. Now, I wanted to rattle off a few honorable mentions, being The Avengers and Django Unchained. But my favorite film of 2012 is It's Such a Beautiful Day, which is created in its entirety by the mastermind Don Hertzfeldt. Now, this film is so beautifully yet so simply animated. I think the animation works perfectly for what it's trying to convey, and it's because it's simple enough that it doesn't take your attention away from the narrative and the story, but it's not too simple that makes it sort of a bad or a negative towards the film. Now, it is also perfectly written. I think it evokes so many emotions in only a 62-minute runtime that I've never seen replicated. It tackles themes like existentialism, life, and death in ways that are childlike but also quite mature, in a way that's also pretty approachable and pretty kind of mainstream, so it's easy to consume, but also makes you think about those themes in a way that a film hasn't really made you think of before. The film is so draining emotionally, but it is certainly worth every single minute that you watch. I learned so much from this film, and I actually sort of rethought life as a whole after watching the film. It was so emotionally powerful and potent that I thought about it for weeks after I watched it. I still think about this film almost every single day. It really is a life changer. I think it changed my outlook on life and how I live it. So I think that's something incredible that has never happened to me in a film before, and I think that's something notable to talk about. So It's Such a Beautiful Day is such an emotionally draining film, but definitely I think is a must-watch for every single person who loves the art of film. It changed my life, and I hope it'll change yours too.
Hey everyone, I'm Onur from Onur's Film Reviews, and I'm here to talk to you about my personal favourite film from 2013. Now, granted that I don't think this film is the best of the year, I think it had a great emotional resonance with me, despite the fact that it was a very well made film. Before I tell you what it is, I would like to mention that I think the best film of this year is in fact Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street, and I'd also like to say that I love Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, and I wish I could talk about that, but it's unfortunately not my favourite from the year. However, my favourite film from 2013 is About Time, which is directed by Richard Curtis. At the time of recording this clip, I saw this film very recently, and I absolutely love it. There's just something so heartwarming and charming about the characters in this film that made me so engaged. The relationship between the two protagonists in this film is genuinely what I would strive to have in my own future. It's just so calm and peaceful. We also have an excellent score, amazing cinematography, a basic yet very intriguing plot, and an amazing script. This is a movie that feels real. It feels like I'm watching people experience life, and that alone is an experience in itself. Hello everyone, nice to see you guys again. My name's Olivier Therian, and I run the channel AReasonableCritic. This is so hard to describe why Whiplash, a 2014 movie, which is the year I was assigned, is the best movie ever made. Okay, well, best movie that I've ever seen. Please take my opinions with like a grain of salt. I'm really trying to like make my opinions really clear. It's really hard to describe this movie, but I think the reason why it's just so compelling is because you have the perfect narrative and then you have the extra fun factor that Fletcher brings. So you know Fletcher, I mean, unless you haven't seen the movie, but Fletcher, he is just a one-liner machine. He is so fun to watch, but he's not funny. And that's the important part. I think the problem with a lot of Marvel, I don't want to be rude to Marvel, I love Marvel, but I think the problem with a lot of Marvel villains and heroes is that they take a lot of drama from the scene because they're too funny. But with Fletcher, you're basically just laughing at how intense he is, but you wouldn't dare laugh at him because then he would mess you up. He is one of the most intimidating people I've ever seen. And it's an incredible ride to watch. But then the narrative's completely different. The narrative focuses on being the best like no one ever was. You know, sacrificing things like the girlfriend, sacrificing things like people will never understand you, as you can see with that phenomenal dinner scene. But then you have the extra layer of not just sacrificing things, but also, that bar scene, for example, explaining why exactly, why exactly are you doing these things? Are you doing them for fame? Are you doing it for money? And that is also a really compelling layer. But then you add an extra layer of the intensity that Fletcher brings. Is it appropriate to bring that much intensity? Will you break the soul, or will you put them to their best? And it just shows that, that whole thing with Charlie Parker is an incredible comparison, because Charlie Parker had to work super hard to get where he was, and he lost a ton of things. He was being pushed constantly. He was laughed off the stage. That's what drives people to be better. It's an incredible message. And then it just all culminates in, honestly, probably the best ending of all time. It's absolutely insane. And then it also includes one of my favorite shots in cinema, which is the shot of Fletcher's eyes. I mean, everyone knows. I think everyone in the critic community knows how much I love that shot. It's just an incredible topper to a fantastic film.
Hey everyone, if you do not know who I am, my name is Gavin and I run the channel Gavin the Geek, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite movie in 2015. Now 2015 was a great year for films. We had Creed, Bridge of Spies, Hotel Transylvania 2, Hunger Games, Mockingjay Part 2, and The Good Dinosaur, aka Pixar's magnum opus. Of course, that's a joke. But my favorite Pixar movie and my favorite film of 2015 is Inside Out. This movie is by far the most personal Pixar movie. It handles emotion so well and just works brilliantly. The characters are all emotions, meaning we can connect with all of them very well. Also, the voice acting for these characters is just great. Who expected Bill Hader to be the one to play Fear? It's such an odd choice and it works very well. The rest are also fantastic and they all have great chemistry. The way the world works is so fantastic, taking elements such as how our head works, such as our train of thought, emotions, and even how our dreams work. Also, I do have to give props to Michael Giacchino's score. It's just amazing. The Incredibles and Up, in my opinion, I think are some of his best and are just ones that really get stuck in your head, like all of his scores. But I think Inside Out is definitely, well, maybe not by far. I think Inside Out is definitely closer to those ones, and I think it's a really fantastic score. And just, it works so very well. But the end really makes this movie my favorite Pixar movie. It tells us it's okay to be sad. It's part of the human nature. It's okay to not be happy all the time. This and Toy Story 3 were the highlight of the Pixar's 2010s. It's kind of sad that they really just haven't been able to top what they were able to do in the 2000s besides this one and Toy Story 3. They just haven't been able to meet up to that. Even after this movie, they made The Good Dinosaur and Finding Dory. Maybe Soul will meet up to their standards more, and who knows, it might become my favorite Pixar movie, but I will settle with Inside Out as my favorite.
Hello everybody, my name is Nolan, I'm from the channel Nolan Talks Movies, and today I'm going to be talking about the year 2016. Of course, this is one of my favorite years of all time for film, because if you do watch my channel, you know that my favorite film is La La Land from the year 2016. But there are also some other great honorable mentions from 2016, such as Your Name, Moana, and Zootopia. But of course, my personal favorite has to be La La Land, as it's my favorite film of all time. La La Land is amazing in so many ways, in my opinion. I think one of the best things about it is the fact that Damien Chazelle put so much heart and soul into it, and it kind of shows in the final product. He said in interviews before that making Whiplash in 2014 was just trying to get him established as a director, that way he could make his dream project, that being La La Land, and I definitely think it paid off with the Christmas release of La La Land in 2016. The year had been pretty good from that point forward, but I think the end of the year is really where it started to blossom with the likes of Moana and La La Land, those two great musicals. I definitely think those films enhanced the year and made it kind of more established as a great year for film.
Ha! Now you've chosen a my annoying voice for a second time. 2017, a pretty solid year actually. I don't think there was a ton of films that came out in 2017 that I absolutely loved. I mean, everyone's gonna probably say, what about Thor Ragnarok? It's solid at best. It's pretty good. I mean, not solid at best, but it's a pretty good film. Baby Driver is one of my all-time favorites of the year. Edgar Wright is a genius, pretty much, especially when it comes to comedy and just this odd creativity and the style that he has. But my favorite is going to be War for the Planet of the Apes. This is one of my favorite films of all time. It's probably, I think, in my top 15, top 10. It's around there, and I just absolutely love this movie, and I think one of my favorite parts about this film is just Andy Serkis' performance. He's great in the first two, but in this film, you really buy his emotion. You just really feel bad for him. You want him to succeed and just rise against the humans in this situation, and just the way they just pulled it off is fantastic. Of course, the CGI is outstanding. It just takes everything that was good in the first two films, and it kind of builds upon it, builds upon the mythology, builds upon everything in this franchise. And I think that's why I just love this movie so much. I'm not a big fan like the old ones. I mean, I thought the first one was a good movie. I think it's kind of overrated. I think a lot of people there's some people I know that really love it, and I'm just not in that camp. I think that it's a solid film, but it's a product of its time. But I think this film is just gonna hold up forever, and it's a CGI movie, but the CGI just is so realistic, and it looks so well done in just a lot of aspects. The action's really good. Also, there's stuff like comedic relief in this film that you wouldn't think would work, but it works pretty well for the film. The emotion that carries, the payoff, and Woody Harrelson, I think that's his name. I think it's Woody Harrelson. Yeah, it's Woody Harrelson, I'm pretty sure. And the villain with him and everything is just, it's great. I know I'm kind of going on a bit long, but I don't know, this movie's just so great in just so many aspects, and I love it. It's my favorite one of 2017. I'm not doing it justice the way I'm talking about it, but I don't know if anyone could, because it's just that good.
I'm back and we're talking about the year 2018, and my favorite film from that year is one of the last films that came out that year, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I wasn't really expecting to put an animated film on this list, but I almost forgot that Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out in 2018. My goodness, what an amazing film. I definitely think this film has so many artistic liberties and creativity kind of bursted throughout it. It's filled up with creativity to the brim. In the animation style, the jokes, everything kind of reflects that creativity. I definitely think you can see the dedication that everyone who worked on the film put into the film. There's no half-hearted performances. Everyone's putting their full attention and their full heart into their performances or their animation or whatever job they're doing on the film, and it definitely paid off. But there are also some other great films from that year that I definitely want to recognize, those being A Quiet Place, Mission Impossible Fallout, and Black Panther. This was a pretty good year for film. I definitely think I prefer 2016, but it was still an amazing year.
2019 was quite the year for movies. From Endgame to Knives Out, there are so many movies to dive into, and I'm going to do my best to talk about some of my favorites in the next couple of minutes. I think one of the big reasons that 2019 stands out to me in terms of movies, in my opinion, is just because of the big contrast between 2019 movies and the film scene in 2020. A lot of my top 10 movies happen to be made in 2019, and I'm really excited to dive into this and tell you guys some of my favorites. Without talking too much about it, Avengers Endgame is a huge movie for the pop culture scene. I personally love the film, and it was just such an amazing experience to be able to experience the movie in theaters with like-minded fans, and it was such a fun time, and it was just a great movie experience all in all. And I love the film. That's pretty much, I could go on for hours about it, but that's it in a nutshell. Parasite and Knives Out are two other amazing films from the year. Knives Out is a spectacular murder mystery, and it approaches the genre with something fresh and new, and that's in my opinion what makes it stand out from the competition. And Parasite won the Best Picture for a reason. It tells a great story and touches on many important topics. The Joker film is one of my favorite superhero films, and one of the reasons I like it so much is because of how down to earth and how gritty it is, while at the same time combining the world of superheroes and that kind of stuff into a movie. I think the movie works brilliantly, and it talks about a lot of real topics, and overall it's a very interesting psychological movie to watch, and it's just such an enjoyable movie to experience. It's a really enjoyable film to watch, and it really gets you thinking about the villain side of the story. The film really paints the villain in a three-dimensional format, which is very important to create a realistic villain. Some other films in the past and even now still create very two-dimensional villains, and I think it's very interesting to focus on the villain side of a story and really build out those characters. And finally, not only my favorite film from 2019, but my current favorite film of all time would be 1917. 1917 is an absolutely amazing film, and whatever it lacks in story, it more than makes up for in its cinematic qualities. For those of you not familiar with the film, 1917 was shot in a one-take format, and they use very interesting editing tricks that trick the viewer into thinking that the camera never cuts throughout the film. The amount of attention to detail that went into the set design of this film, blocking, and cinematography absolutely blows me away. This film was so much fun to watch in a theater, and while I still enjoy it watching it on my television, it was just such an immersive experience watching it on the big screen. Some people will argue that the plot of this film isn't the best, but to me, the plot isn't what makes this film so great. The plot serves as a way for this filmmaking technique to be shared with the audience, and it makes for a wonderfully made film.
What is going on, guys? My name is Alex, aka Fritski. That's where you can find me on YouTube, is the channel Fritski. And today I am covering the year 2020, talking about The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man is a remake that was made this year that is retelling the story of a modernized version of the black and white classic Universal monster film. If you check out my channel, you know that I absolutely love horror, and I find it rather ironic that this year has not been that great for movies, unfortunately, but one of the few good gems to come out has been a really well-made horror film. Now, the Invisible Man's character has always been part of the science fiction side of horror, because he's part of an experiment that went wrong. However, though, this movie tells a completely different story than the original film did, while still having the same character. And not only do I think that this film was more scarier than the original Invisible Man, but it is also unique because it is part of a subgenre called technology horror. And this is an element of horror where technology goes wrong.